me just start by saying this. I am not a chef. I can barely follow the instructions on a box of mac and cheese without somehow lighting a burner on fire. And yet, somehow, this is the story of how I tried to convince a very smart, very attractive woman that I was not just into cooking, but that I was a full-on culinary artist. Spoiler, it did not go well. I'm a 29-year-old dude living in Chicago. I work in IT support for a medical software company, not exactly glamorous, but I like my coworkers, and no one expects me to wear pants with buttons. Wins all around. I've been single for about a year and a half since my ex moved to Seattle and took our mutual dog with her, R.I.P. me. One of my New Year's resolutions was to get back out there and date like a functioning adult, which of course meant dusting off the dating apps. Tinder was a bust, Bumble had become 80%. Hey, I'm actually just looking for someone to babysit my reptile collection, and Hinge made me feel like I was applying for a job at a vegan bookstore. So I downloaded Match. I figured, hey, older crowd, maybe someone who knows how to make eye contact and pay their half of the check. I spent an embarrassing amount of time trying to make my profile look casual, witty, and cool without screaming. I am desperately trying to seem casual, witty, and cool. For one of the prompts, what's your favorite thing to do on a Sunday? I wrote, nothing beats cooking something elaborate while jazz plays and the windows are open. Here's the thing. That sounds so nice. And I wish it were true. But I wrote it because I'd done that once, during lockdown, when I tried to make Gordon Ramsay's scrambled eggs and ended up accidentally ordering duck eggs from Instacart. It was a whole thing. Anyway, I didn't think much of it. Cut to a few weeks later, I match with a woman named Maya. She's a civil engineer. She has actual hiking photos that aren't just her standing near a cliff edge in yoga pants pretending not to be freezing. And her profile said she had strong opinions about breakfast potatoes, which is exactly the kind of unhinged specificity I respect in a partner. We chat, and it's good. Like, suspiciously good. She's clever, sarcastic, and can quote both Parks and Rec and Anthony Bourdain. On day 3 of messaging, she says, "So, what's the most elaborate thing you've ever cooked?" My stomach dropped. I froze. For a solid minute, I just stared at my phone like it had personally betrayed me. Because here's the thing, I completely forgot that I said anything about cooking. I thought we were in safe territory. Jokes about IKEA furniture and Midwestern winters and the philosophical superiority of hash browns over home fries. I had a choice in that moment. I could be honest. I could say, well, I mostly reheat Trader Joe's dumplings and burn the occasional quesadilla. Or I could commit. I texted back, oh man, probably the time I made homemade gnocchi from scratch. Took hours, but totally worth it. She replied, and I quote, "Marry me." About a week later, she says she wants to meet in person. She suggests a coffee date, but I, clearly drunk on my own imaginary chef identity, suggest dinner. At my place. Why? Why did I do this? I told myself I could learn. That I had time. That YouTube and Reddit and sheer panic would guide me. I immediately texted my older sister, who is a real human woman who knows how to make risotto and taxes. Me. If I needed to cook something impressive but not impossible in like 6 days, what would you suggest? Her, why are you like this? Eventually, we landed on a menu. Starter, Capri skewers, reed, mozzarella balls on toothpicks, which even I can't screw up. Main, pasta alla vodka, creamy, crowd-pleasing, doesn't require a pasta machine. Dessert, store-bought tiramisu, served in a fancy glass so I could pretend I assembled it. Easy, elegant, possibly doable, except I didn't account for how small my kitchen is. Or the fact that I had one usable pan, or that I somehow, in 29 years of life, had never properly sautéed garlic without either burning it or dropping it on the floor. 2 days before the date, I attempted a trial run. I followed this smug British guy on YouTube who said things like, you mustn't rush the aromatics. I immediately rushed the aromatics. The sauce curdled, the smoke alarm screamed, and my downstairs neighbor banged on the ceiling like she was summoning the underworld. I texted Maya, hope you're not allergic to chaos. She sent back a laughing emoji and said, can't wait. Reader, I wanted to cancel, but I also really liked her. And some part of me, the part that still believed in romantic comedies and second chances, thought this might be worth it. So I cleaned my apartment, lit one overpriced candle, and prepped everything with the seriousness of someone defusing a bomb. The day of the date, I was a wreck. I cleaned every visible surface of my apartment. And by cleaned, I mean I shoved everything I didn't know where to put into the closet. I even borrowed my roommate's plant to make my kitchen counter look like someone who knows what a basil chiffonade is lives here. Dinner was scheduled for 7 p.m. At 6:12, Maya texted, "Running 10 minutes late. Parking is chaos. Do I need to bring wine? Or dessert? Or both?" I stared at that text for a full minute. Was this a trap? Was she testing me to see if I was one of those guys who says, "Bring whatever you want," and then silently judges? I typed, "You don't need to bring anything, but I will never say no to dessert." She replied, "Copy that. See you soon." At 6:47, I was standing in my tiny kitchen wearing the one button-down I own that doesn't have a mustard stain. The vodka sauce was fine. It wasn't glossy or silky like the YouTube guys, but it smelled decent. I had no idea if it would actually taste like anything, but I figured if I plated it with confidence, she'd believe me. Then she knocked. I opened the door and, okay, listen, Maya is the kind of beautiful that sneaks up on you. In her photos, she looked cute. In person, she looked like the kind of person who turns heads without trying. Jeans, boots, oversized sweater. Effortless. Meanwhile, I was sweating like I was in a cooking competition with Gordon Ramsay and emotional stakes. She held up a box from a bakery I love, but have never actually been to because I'm a disaster with impulse control. "You said never say no to dessert." So I panicked and bought 3. We laughed. I let her in. And immediately, things started to unravel. The first red flag was the wine. She brought a bottle, a nice one, judging from the cursive label and the cork that required actual upper body strength. I had no corkscrew. I offered her beer. She declined politely and said, "Let's just save the wine for next time," which was incredibly generous. I filed that under things to Google immediately after this date. Then came the cooking conversation. She followed me into the kitchen while I tried to look casual stirring the sauce, which, by the way, I had taken off the heat 15 minutes ago out of fear that it would evaporate into a weird tomato sludge. "This smells amazing," she said. "Thanks," I replied, way too quickly. It's a riff on a vodka sauce I had in New York once. They used pancetta, but I skipped it. Kept it clean. Why did I say that? Why did I invent a backstory for this sauce like it was a Marvel character? She nodded like she was impressed. Then she looked at my knife block. "What knives do you use? These look nice." "Oh, you mean the $5 IKEA knife set my mom gave me when I moved out at 22? They're decent," I said, sliding a cutting board over to obscure the logo. "I'm looking to upgrade, though. Eventually." "Yeah, a good knife changes everything," she said, picking one up and examining it like a pro. I changed the subject. "So you build bridges?" She laughed. "Not personally. I do structural analysis. So mostly, I stare at CAD files and drink coffee. Sounds way more important than what I do." "IT support is important," she said. "You're like tech paramedics. You save people from deleting their lives." Okay, she was funny. Smart. Not a wine snob. And she was clearly trying to put me at ease. Too bad I just realized I forgot to salt the pasta water. I dumped in the dry rigatoni while she admired my magnetic spice rack. Read. An Amazon impulse buy I never used. "What blend do you use for the sauce?" she asked. "Blend?" I panicked. "Mostly oregano and red pepper flake. I keep it simple." In reality, I had dumped a pre-mixed Italian seasoning blend into the pot and prayed for complexity. She nodded, then stepped over to help set the table, which meant she opened the drawer where I had stuffed everything from the counter, including 3 forks, 1 melted spatula, and what I can only describe as the emotional husk of a garlic bulb. "You, keeping a fork graveyard in here?" "Minimalist chic," I said deadpan. We both laughed. The tension eased. And for one brief moment, I thought, okay, maybe I can pull this off. And then I tasted the pasta. It was bland, like cardboard softened in warm tomato water. No salt, no flavor, and the sauce had separated slightly, leaving little oil puddles clinging to the noodles like sad droplets of shame. I stared into the pot like it had personally betrayed me. "Everything okay?" she asked. I had 2 options, keep pretending or come clean. So I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, confession time. I'm not actually a great cook. I just panicked when you asked me what I like to do on Sundays, and I thought it sounded impressive." She blinked, then laughed. "Hard. I knew something was up when you said you kept it clean, but your stove had exactly 1 scorch mark shaped like Ohio." We both laughed. She sat down. I served the pasta anyway. She tried a bite, smiled politely, and said, It's not inedible, which, honestly, was the best review I could have hoped for. We ate, talked, and devoured 2 out of the 3 bakery desserts while rating them like food critics. This cannoli is bold, she said. Strong crust, soft center. Would eat again. I feel like the eclair had potential, I replied. But it's clearly going through something. We laughed until the awkwardness wore off. Until the kitchen didn't feel like a stage and the food didn't matter anymore. And somehow, she agreed to a second date.